Here we are, show number 90. ALTBAYS Show, done by the community to the community. So if you are keen to support this channel, subscribe. If you are watching us on YouTube, you can also join our platform and give a small donation. It can be $5, $10. There are different tiers there, and it's good help because we're putting a lot of love and efforts into this. So feel free to support these crazy people running this cool show. If you are more of a podcast listener, at the end of the show, we upload the audio version to Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. I'm speaking with my hands. If you are listening, you cannot see, but if you're watching, you can see. If you cannot keep up with 1 hour and a half, 2 hours conversation, because some people have a short attention span, we have the ALTBAYS clips where we break down the chats and you can watch 5-10 minutes of the conversations and see if you like it or not. And then you go for the whole one, maybe not. Or if your attention span is even shorter than that, you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, where we upload clips, 30 seconds, 1 minute clips. And yeah, it's another way to support us. So do it. On my left, Brett Soanes.
The political correspondent. I've been practicing.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Sorry, Taylor must hate it. He gets all the cameras prepared, and then I sit down and I move and sit in a different way, and he's got to come and readjust them. But sorry, Taylor.
It keeps him active, man.
Yeah, it gives him something to do.
It's part of the job. Cool shirt.
Oh, thank you.
Can you describe it for our listeners who are not watching us?
It's a Indian style, Mandela style pink with a peace symbol and a Om symbol in the middle. Yeah, I suppose. Would you call it something like that?
Yeah.
My wife made it.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Does she sell t-shirts?
She does occasionally.
Oh, cool. So we should advertise that. Can you talk to us and then we'll advertise her t-shirts? That'll be cool.
It should do. Yeah.
Nice. Would you run for mayor, Brett?
I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
I've never thought in my mind, hey, maybe I should run for mayor. But maybe when I'm a little bit older and a little bit wiser, I'm a bit too all over the show at the moment. Not even sure what I think. So
it's a
wait for stuff to stabilise a little bit.
Funny thing that you said, because I think it was Anna Horn from the Green Party who said that it's a shame that we don't have younger representatives. Is that the word?
Yeah, representatives. Yeah,
representatives. So why do you think you have to be older to?
Oh, I just feel you get a little bit wiser, when you get a little bit older.
But maybe the things that you know now would relate to the people your age, maybe.
That's true. I'd be easily influenced, I'll say that. But I'm sure only in the good ways, But I like changing my mind. So, but I'd stick by the things I promise. That's for sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Should we find out what a mayor does? That would be good, right?
Yeah, we might find out tonight with any luck.
Tonight we have John FREER here with us. How are you, John?
I'm fantastic, thanks, Leah.
Thanks for coming, man.
Yep, nice to be here.
Do you like the space?
It's very nice, very comfortable. I'm happy. Don't ask me what a mayor does. I don't know.
Oh, God damn it. I'm going to have to ask Taylor.
That's the end of the show.
Goodness me, I'm learning. I got to get elected first.
You can tell us what a mayor is going to do, though.
Yeah, well, that's right. I'll find out in a hurry, I'd say.
Cool. Yeah. So, John, you've done a bunch of things. I was reading a little bit your bio, and you've been everywhere. You've done a few things, but currently, the important one, let's say, you're running for mayor for Thames-Coromandel district. Is that right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool, Leo. And I've, as you said, I have done quite a lot of stuff around, and I think that my career to date positions me well for the role ahead. If you're running the Thames-Coromandel District Council, you're running a business that over the next 12 months will turn over $130, $140 million. And you've got to have the experience and capability to do that. And, in terms of my career working with organisations like independent newspapers, News Limited in New Zealand, the New Zealand Academy of Sport, I think I'm pretty well positioned to be able to step in and undertake that role.
How does it feel to be, I won't say on the other side, but like when you are part of the media, you're always checking what the politicians are doing, and it's a big part of the journalists to go after those people and ask the questions that sometimes they don't want to answer. So do you feel like you're more prepared now that you know how that game is played?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a game. I think I'm very well prepared. I reckon that I've most probably attended more council meetings as a journalist than anybody else in the Thames-Coromandel
Then
District
the
Council
politics.
area. The other thing with the politics is, and I'm quite honest about this, I'm not a politician. I'm not doing this for political reasons. I'm doing it because I want to make sure that our community, one of the nicest parts of New Zealand to live in, continues to grow and develop. Simple as that.
Is it probably the position that has more influence to make that happen when it comes to mayor? Now, just so we understand a little bit, I know that you said that you're not the master of each politician does, but is it the most relevant one for the area? Is it the mayor who holds more power in that sense?
Look, I think I'm a great team player. Pretty much all through my career, you'll see the people that I've worked with, it's been in a team environment. Hey, played rugby for Thames Valley, it's about a team. I do play golf, which is individual. But look, coming back, obviously the mayor has a strategically important role to do, but the mayor is only one of 10 people sitting at the council table. So we've got to make sure that we've got everybody working across. The other thing too is that in terms of the culture in the council and the way the council operates, we do need a leader. We've got to have a leader there so we can actually make sure that we have the right culture in place and that we're actually linking with the right people in the community so we can move forward.
So on that, I've got two questions. One, that 120, 30 million, whatever it was, that's all ratepayer? That's rates, is it?
Most of it is rates. There's also money that comes in from other funds and that type of thing. There's obviously the work that council does and charges for services. So there's sort of three components. You've got your rates money that the council earns through services provision and the like, and also any money that comes in from sort of NZTA, which is roading money, or any other government agencies.
Okay, now, and the next thing, so like, I'm pretty ignorant to what a mayor does. But from Raglan, the mayor was in Ngunnawahia, and we didn't know his name, never met him, that was it. My dad was a council manager in Raglan. He would have known his name, but no one knew. People thought my dad was the mayor, which he was far from it. Although he would have made a good one. So what I want is could you explain? Like you sort of started on that, like being the head, or being a leader per se. Could you explain exactly how that works? Like how your influence would work from within the council? Are you employed by the council or per se? Like or is it do the government pay? I'm not sure like how that works. But are you employed by the council? Who the hell are these 9 other people or 10 other people as well? And and what sort of decisions do you make, or would you make as a collective in that group, or is it a collective, or can you veto it, like things like that? I'm just curious because I've got no idea.
Yeah, hey, you're the chairman of the board.
You might not know either, but you might find out.
In simple terms, the mayor is the chairman of the board.
Okay.
All right. So as I said, the mayor is one of 10 people who form the board of the Thames-Coromandel District Council.
Okay.
So we look after all of the governance and policy, and then the staff actually deliver that. So you've got governance at one end and then the management and the staff, and that is left to the CEO. And you've got to make sure you have that clear line, a differential between what is governance and what is management. Now, in saying that, I think that there definitely has to be a connection between the council and the staff. And I put out an open letter to staff just recently, and one of the things that I spoke about in that was actually the need for having everybody to work together. And, this is sort of one of the things I think is really important for our region going forward. I think it's just that, one of the terms that I use, and it's not new, is empowerment. The empowerment model. So there was a mayor some years ago, Glenn Leach, and he implemented the empowerment model, which actually gives residents, the various residential groups, whether it be your ratepayer associations, iwi, any other group that's representing, it could be one of our stakeholders, DOC or whoever, them all working together with our council to work together. So it's not the councillors or the staff that are actually saying, this is what we're going to do. Through the empowerment model, it's about listening to your residents and then prioritising what they want done. Now, there's only so much bloody money in the bucket. So, you know, then it comes back to the council and you ask what they do. They're the ones that sort of have to nut through and say, well, what is the stuff that we need to do? So that's, you know, it's a very complex job and it is a huge job.
So those other people made up from councillors? Like
Councillors, yep.
And do you get like, so I knew that from my own experience, we had like a councillor, you know, back where I'm from. So you would have like a councillor from Whiri and you'd have one from representing the different areas. And
so how it works, and a previous council determined this, so there's 3 councillors in Whirianga. There's 2 in what they call the southeastern ward, which is Tairua, Pauanui, Whangamata. There's 3 in Thames, and there's 1 in Coromandel.
Okay.
And then there's the next tier down, which is your community boards. Yep. So they're actually elected in the local ward areas. So, you know, you have one for Mercury Bay, another one down for the southeastern ward, Thames and Coromandel.
And this is all coming up?
All of it's
the whole lot's
mate.
coming up. Yep.
So I think the voting papers are due to come out sometime around about the 15th of September. And then it's a postal vote. They close at midday, I think it's the 8th of October, and we should have the decision that afternoon.
So if you, for example, or like how do you guys decide what to talk about? So like we had Scott Simpson on the other day, and I asked him those sorts of questions, and he's like, "There's all these types of things, and this is how it all comes about." And you know, some of it comes out of a ballot, some of it's brought up by whoever's in power. Yep. Like, what would then be deemed an important? Like when you, because like you make your yearly budget, would it?
Right.
Yeah.
And
so
then there's a 10-year plan,
and
there's also an annual plan. And so this current council has settled the annual plan for the next 12 months. So the new council, when it comes in, it will actually deliver that annual plan. What I'm going to recommend to the council is, the new council, is that I want to actually see a much more detailed plan in place, and that detail is going to come from the residents. So the very first thing, and look, there's going to be a heck of a lot of learning to do. You know, when you look at the council's financial statement and financial report, it's a pretty significant document. And, you know, we need to make sure that we've got our heads around that.
It's a lot of money, like you say, isn't it?
It is a lot of money. And, you know, I want to make sure that all the councillors are across that, you know, so we're all working off the same sheet. And, you know, so there's all that sort of stuff to do initially, and then we sort of go through, and as I said, consulting with our community, that we then identify what are the key priorities for the various regions, and then work them back through. I've looked at sort of a structure, and I've been working with a number of people right through the country in terms of establishing a new structure for Thames-Coromandel District Council. Now, as I said, I'm only one of 10 people, so, you know, I'm going to have to convince the others that it works. But that structure is about cohesive communities. So the first part of that would be our local communities. So take Whirianga as an example. There'll be a group that works with Whirianga and links with the community board. The next lot is infrastructure. So that's all the stuff that we don't miss until it doesn't work, you know, so your water, your sewage and all that.
Sure.
The next one,
maybe we won't
don't talk about that.
We might not even have to pay for it.
We've had that discussion.
Yeah.
But the other point too is that, you know, we have to generate more income through our region, you know, not just for the council, but for all the businesses. And I think an effective economic development strategy is a must for us moving forward. And there are some quite reasonable ideas around that in terms of what we can do there, and then under that is governance and policy. So that's making sure that that big wad of money that you talked about is maximised, that it's all invested and it's not wasted. And I think that's a critical point for our council moving forward.
Sorry, John, which kind of ideas would be? Because you said there is some ideas to do this should change.
In terms of economic development?
Yes.
You know, I look at sort of our region, and there's a really good example that just popped up the other day where up at Port Jackson, there's a farmer up there and his wife who have set up, it's called the Pahi Coastal Walk, and, you know, they've just launched it and they've already got 1,300 people doing that walk. So what are the other things that we can actually look at? I look at sort of, got a mountain bike. I love going up into the forest, riding my bike. If you look around the country and other parts, Taylor, you know, the thing is that you see places down the west coast, Central Otago, that without cycling, a lot of the businesses down there would be closed. So it's sort of what can we do around that space? I look at, the place around here, we have a lovely climate. What are we doing in terms of events and that sort of stuff? Running rugby tournaments here or netball tournaments or concerts or arts or whatever, that, I think that the council's actually got a role to play there and actually make that event happen.
So I don't mean to be ignorant, but why would the council have an interest in something like that when it brings them back, I'm guessing, not much monetary value?
Oh, it can bring in big
It
monetary
can?
value.
I think it can.
No, I mean for the council themselves, though.
Oh, it's not so much.
It's for the love. You're doing it. They actually.
No. We're doing it so that Kerry Stanley's supermarket down there is actually going to have more people coming through the supermarket or the local cafe on the corner. We've got to stimulate more people to come here and visit and use our services. Today I met with Alan Hopping from Lost Spring, and it was really interesting. He's talking about sort of significant stuff that they could go forward on. Well, council actually has a role to set that in motion and make these things happen.
That's good. I've just...
Alan Hopping's a character, man. And he's got a big space, right? He's been working on that for years. So and he talks a lot about this opportunity to have a space where the youth could learn, engage with mentoring programs and all this stuff to keep more of the young people around here. So I believe there's a space for that. John, when you say that it would be cool to bring more people and do more things here, I connect with the infrastructure of the place. We've been through a few problems with the water supply in the last summers, and people struggling with parkings in some areas, that they were designated for something, suddenly next day they're not anymore. So how do we play this thing of wanting to bring more people and still having a structure of a small place?
This goes back, Leo, to the planned approach. So we've actually got to plan for what we believe is going to happen in the future. Look, without a plan, you won't go anywhere. We've sort of got to stop the knee-jerk stuff and the political tripe that we're going to move forward on and look at what are we going to do in terms of a plan. Okay, now that plan could be around, obviously, water and all that sort of stuff, the infrastructure around having more tourists. And it is a tough one for our council because we all know that for a large part of the year, your numbers are low and then you get this massive influx of people over the holiday period. So we're pretty good at handling that. And I must say that the current council and those before it have made very good investment in some of the infrastructure around the place. I know that people are talking about water and those issues need to be reviewed and we need to find solutions to them.
We're coming back to water in a second.
If you were to...
As long as you don't talk about chicken, I'll be all right.
Hey, I've asked you. The water thing, though, I've actually got a listener question for you. It was going to be for Scott Simpson, but he was like, no, it's more of a council sort of thing, so it might be a good one for you. Was the fact that we keep allowing more and more subdivisions to go ahead, and we seem to not have the water for them, be able to provide enough of the drinking water, the clean water. And is that something that maybe the council is looking at addressing, or if you became mayor, that would be something that would be a thing? Because our growth in this town is just it seems to be astronomical. I'm coming from a trade, and I'm guessing it's only going to keep on going and going and going. Yep. And the water seems to be a big issue. Is there any solutions or something around that you?
I don't have the solutions, okay, but I have an understanding that with a planned approach, we know that somebody's going to do a subdivision. So obviously with the planned approach, we know what we need in terms of water, sewage. So we've got to work to do that. Now, if we can't make that supply, either we find a solution or that development is going to stop.
We'll have to stop. Okay. Yeah.
And it's as simple as that.
That's
it's no good doing a development if all of a sudden you can't supply sewage. But the other thing too, I was talking to a guy at Wharekāhau one day, and he said they were talking about sort of water and sewage and all that, and he said, look, I built a house, cost him, I don't know, $1 million or whatever, and he put in his own sewage and own water. And he said, to him it was a good investment because he did that, and obviously tanks and that type of stuff, and went from there. So, look, there's lots of options, but there again, I think it comes back, well, I don't think I know, it's about having some clear guidelines and planning to make sure we can cater for any developments.
Good answer.
Good answer.
Oh, that's impressed. What's your next question?
3 waters. No. Go.
Oh, 3 waters. Isn't that joyful?
I work at the school, so I deal with the youth quite a lot. So I'm watching closely to what they do, how they engage, and this is a place that was always quite obvious to me that you have a lot of teenagers, and then they leave for university, whatever, and then you have a gap, new families coming back to raise their children, and an older part of I would say, the biggest part of the community, older people, retirement villages and everything. So there's also development for that. But like the youth, it's a big chunk of the population in this area. And I'm just wondering if, because I can only speak for Whitianga,
Yep.
if there is something in the plans or that you would personally be happy to see it happening to target those teenagers, those people who are living here, to keep them more active?
Leo, I'm going to sort of broaden it out a bit, because I think it's not just about the youth. It's about all people. And sort of right at the top of my list, in terms of my priorities, are people. Without cohesive, happy communities, where are we going to go? Absolutely nowhere. People aren't going to want to come and visit us or do anything here. People aren't going to want to come and invest in business or industry or anything like that. So it's really important that we have a clear strategy for our people. Obviously, when you look at our community, we've got a large number of people who have got the same coloured hair as me, okay? So what we do for them is going to be different to the kids that you talk about. And I know that it is one thing that does concern me, is that we don't actually have enough activities for kids. Now, in saying that, I think we're really lucky, because most of us live within a short bike ride of a beach, so you can go swimming, you can go biking and all that sort of stuff. But we do need to look and see what we can do for our children. Now, we talked earlier before we came on air about sort of our community is being at risk at the moment. We've got the ram raids, we're getting people beaten up. A woman came into my office the other day in Thames and said, I don't wear my jewellery to work anymore. When she goes shopping anymore. So that's really concerning, because all of a sudden we get that stigma about, well, don't go to Thames, it's a dangerous place. So we've got to work to change that. And, you've heard of an incident that I was involved in. What I've been really lucky to achieve is that I have worked with disadvantaged and kids at risk previously when I was working with the Academy of Sport. And I worked with a guy called Billy Graham in Lower Hutt. And he has turned the lives around of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids using boxing. Now, we're really lucky. In Thames, there's a group called the Never Surrender Trust. It's run by guys Sean George and Andrew Connaughton, and I've actually engaged with them. They've got this really shabby sort of boxing centre out at the old Thames racecourse. But they got 90 kids in there, And they said that a lot of those kids are kids that have actually sort of had a pretty tough life, and now they're in there and they're learning discipline, sport, control, mateship and all that sort of stuff through boxing. So, that's one example, and I think these are the sorts of things that we've got to continue to look at, because, as I said, we want to live in pretty cohesive, nice communities.
What was the incident that you mentioned, John? What happened? I read briefly, but if it comes from you, I think we would get the real version.
Yeah, it was just an unfortunate situation. We were at Goldfields Shopping Centre and some kids were misbehaving. We asked them to leave, and then one of them hit me with a very good left hook. Right hook. No, it was a right hook. And it was a
the beginnings of a good boxer.
Wow, that's what I said. The New Zealand Herald interviewed me, and I said the kid should take up boxing because he had a really good bloody right hook. And so, but then, you know, the first couple of days I was pretty angry, Leo. I thought, gee whiz, how does a grey-haired old person like me have to endure this? And so then I thought, well, hang on, let's spin this around. And that's when I was lucky, when I met the guys from the Never Surrender Trust. So, and they said straight away, those are the sorts of kids that we need to get off the street and bring them into our program. So, you know, hopefully there's going to be a good outcome from that.
Are you well?
I am well now.
You
I've
okay?
got over it. It took a while. You know, when you sort of get to our age, you don't sort of expect something like that. But yeah, it took a while to get through it.
Is it something that is happening more than you experienced before in Thames, in the region? Because you actually live close to Whangamata, right? You're not actually in Thames, but
No.
I see a lot in the news. But then I wonder, is it because now we're more exposed to the media? Like we have more media, more access to media? Or it's something that has been happening for a long time?
Leo, I don't have the stats, okay? But I do have an example that happened on Sunday. I think there was something like 7 or 8 family harm incidents in Thames that the police had to deal with on that day. So it is increasing, there's no doubt about that. You know, I see people walking around and they're under pressure, you know, for some reason. Now, we talked about it earlier, Brett, about sort of what's causing this sort of stuff. I don't know, I'm concerned about the amount of drugs and stuff that have got into our society, but I don't have the silver bullet to fix that. But, you know, we've got to start to work as a community to try and make sure that we can get rid of as much of that as possible.
When Scott Simpson came to the show, I kind of knew the speech that National would put when it comes to gangs and drugs, and
Right.
it was pretty much like targeting those activities as criminal activities, you know, like those people involved. So like it would be more of like a police would be a case to be considered crime. Would you be more for that approach, like to actually target them as a violent criminal organization that needs a tough approach on crime? Crime, well, if it is crime, right?
Gee whiz, this could drop me in it, couldn't it, eh?
Oh,
Look,
well,
look, I
your
think,
opinion. You know?
There's only one right answer.
Yeah, I know.
No,
Look, the thing is that council has never actually been really involved in the space of police, fire, ambulance,
Right.
you know, first responders, that sort of stuff. It's been left to national agencies. My belief, and I'm very clear on this, that I think council does have to be involved. If we want to have cohesive communities, we've actually got to really start to bash the table and push back on the fact that we don't have enough police here, you know, that we don't have enough firemen here. I can remember a story on Buffalo Beach Road here not all that long ago where there was a car accident, a person was badly injured and there was nobody to go and help them. You know, a friend of mine fell over in Whangamata in his house and he was at 2 hours, he was lying on the floor until the ambulance arrived. Now that is not acceptable in our society, and I think this is where council now, it's another one of those things that we have to look at and think, is it a priority for us? If it is, then we've got to find the solution and see where we take it.
It would make sense, right? Because we are the people who are close to these cases, right?
Yep.
So like we are the ones dealing with it on a everyday basis. What do you think, Brett?
yeah, no, I was when you were talking, I was listening, but I was racking my brains, trying to think like how that might, like a way that a council could help with something like that, because like I say, usually it is handled by, you know, like might be the health system or something like that if it's got to do with like mental well-being and things like that. But like I was thinking about that boxing gym that you're talking about. What was that one called again?
Yeah, the Never Surrender Trust.
Never Surrender, you know, like, you know, if the council could put money into like a multi-purpose, you know, sports building or something like that, and they would have a place to do it and throw a little bit of local money in to scenarios like that, you know, or night hours, or I mean they do what they can, you know, but yeah, just trying to. I was just racking my brains trying to figure out how a council could do that.
Well,
Apart from banging you, like going, hey, listen up, we need more cops, kind of thing.
Well, this comes back to what is a priority for our communities, okay? And that's what we need to the communities as part of the empowerment model to tell us what is important to you. What is the stuff that the council should be focusing on? You know, like, and I know that I've looked, as I spoke earlier about, we need to have a planned approach to what we're doing. Now, the planned approach means it's like, let's look at something, say, tar sealing the road from Coromandel to Kennedy Bay. Now, what we need to do as part of the plan to be able to say, right, that road will be tar sealed in 2029. So at least the residents of Kennedy Bay know, yep, we're not going to get our road tar sealed until 2029. Now, what I'm seeing around here at the moment, there's a lot of stuff where people are waiting for stuff to happen. Now, it comes back to these kids and that, and I agree with you. I think we should be looking at putting money into facilities and stuff like that. And there's been a little bit of talk over in Thames recently about a potential facility over there for young people, which, you know, times are changing. And we know that the things that sort of spin for kids these days didn't spin for them 20 years ago.
You're going to set up a gaming centre?
No.
Oh.
You can do it.
I'll do it when I'm in.
We would love, we would love to do that, John. We would love to do that.
You can do that commercially.
Well, we're trying to. It's hard to operate 4 cameras, but we would love to have a space where they can play. Because that's the thing. A lot of people laugh about that and think that it's crazy. But like, if you ask 10 kids, probably 6 or 7 will say that they would love to be a YouTuber or a gamer, and they understand that they can make a lot of money out of that, probably more than their parents. And the parents laugh. But they laugh until the day that the kids make more than them.
That's exactly right, Leo.
You know, so like, again, just as we are all laughing here, like we really think that if it's a space that is set up for them to come, have fun, but also learn something, you know, it could be good.
Well, this is the sort of feedback that we need. And going back, the community board that becomes the new community board here, they're the ones that are going to be advising the council on what your community needs. So, you know, this is where we get the community involved and sit them down and find out. You know, I can't stress enough that that's the sort of stuff that we need moving forward. You know, I can remember my son, when he was about 18 or 19, he built his computer. And he did that because he needed a particular computer because he was into gaming and all that sort of stuff. His old man was a rugby player and did all that, but that's what my kid did. That made him happy, and he's turned out pretty well as a result, so be it.
Do you play video games?
No. Oh, there is a somewhere, I think it's at Maramarua, there's a fish and chip shop, and they've got those old video games things, you know? Yeah, really cool. The ones that go beep, 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 and the little things drop down. So I must confess I have played those.
John, where's the place you live at Onemona?
Onemana, yep.
Onemana, which is close to Whangamata.
Yeah, it's about 10 k's north. So you got Whangamata, Onemana, or Potri. Yeah.
Is it how is the housing situation in Whangamata and in the area at the moment? Because this is a topic that comes up in the show quite often.
I'm sure there's heaps of empty houses.
Yeah, well, we talk a lot about that, you know, like a lot of houses here, development booming and a lot going on, but like we live here, we see empty houses, and then we go on chit chats and all those pages where the real people are there having a conversation, and there's always someone looking for a rent. And people make sure to stress to put it, mother, 2 kids, you know, looking for a place, you know, or a business is looking for staff, and there is staff, but they don't have a place to live, and then they don't move to this place. So how is the situation in Whangamata?
Just the same as it is everywhere else, Leo, you know. Well, look, we all know there's lots of empty houses, and I'd love to come up with some sort of smart idea that maybe the holiday homes got some sort of rate relief or whatever if they made their homes available for permanent rental. But then we all know that the holiday people want to come down every second weekend, so, you know, you've got to be realistic around it. We had quite a long discussion today about the whole housing issue, and we know, and if you only got to look back to when Sandra became the mayor 6 years ago, and in her mayoral speech she talked about housing being one of the issues. We know it's an issue. We now have to find a solution to it. Okay? I have had a discussion more about over on the West Coast. I had a discussion with Toby Adams, who's the mayor of Hauraki District Council. Now, Hauraki District Council actually did a residential development out at Ngatea, and I think it was about, I think it was 60 sections, or it might have been 90, I'm not sure. But they've done that and put in affordable housing. Now, that's the sort of thing I think that we should be looking at. And I spoke to him about saying, hey, Turua, what's the chances of building some houses which would at least supply, and I know they're outside of our area, but we need housing so people can come here to work. You know, you just mentioned it all. So it's about sort of being innovative around that. And it's not an easy one, Leo, but it's one that I think we have to put a considerable amount of attention on. And even again, it's like, and I know under the things like the Resource Management Act, really curb councils in terms of what they can do in some areas, but it's another one of those things we just can't accept it. You know, we've got to push back and say, hey, look, we've got businesses that can't get staff because they can't house them, so we've got to try and change and push back.
I think a place like like Whiri too, like it would be quite hard to say build affordable, like to make affordable housing here, you know, because one, what's affordable? You know,
I
like by the time you put a
you.
section in and build a house on it, though, like you'd have to have almost 2 six-figure incomes to pay for it, though, wouldn't you?
Well, why don't we sort of look at that the other way? Should council actually be buying some land somewhere and building affordable homes? You know, is that an option for us?
Oh, do you mean like as in rent to rent out?
No, to sell to people. You know, to sell the affordable homes so people can get into a home. You know, you could do them as rentals. I would prefer to actually build them and enable people to buy them because, you know, what does it do? It gives them a property, and all those people that are really struggling to get a property, it gives them a chance, and they think, wow, how good's this place? But, you know, and I think that was another discussion we had today, just about sort of looking, where are those opportunities? Are there areas here, somewhere, driving into town or whatever, that's land available? I've been working with a friend of mine in Whangamata. He's an architect, looking at the same thing, because he did some designs over in Australia. He was working up in Hervey Bay, and they built sort of affordable houses. And, you know, so it's been interesting talking to Bruce. But, you know, we've got to keep this discussion going, and let's
I'm
just
glad you're
keep
thinking
pushing
about it.
it.
Because
Yeah.
I try and come up with these harebrained schemes to try and, like, not anything serious, but to try and fix the issues, you know, like, because just as a thought experiment, I suppose, you know, and all I've come up with is, like, getting rid of Booker Batch kind of style houses, because there's a lot of them around, you know, like maybe making them abide by the same rules as like a rental in the way of like heating of like insulating a house or something, and then all of it, because a lot of them own them, these uninsulated houses, and have them as Booker Batches because they can't rent them. So you either live in it yourself or sell it, right, or Booker Batch it. But there's a lot of you could do something similar with a camping ground. You know, like I sort of wondered, like you could put a camping ground in with units, you know, those cheap units, because a lot of people looking for houses are only 1 or 2 people, you know, and it's like, well.
But why did you say that you don't think it would be possible to do this, to have the affordable homes here, because it would devalue
I just thought it would probably cost too much. The actual raw cost of building the house and buying the land would probably be out of the range of I guessed, or I'm guessing, should I say, would be out of the range of a normal average income. Yeah.
You're a plasterer, you build houses, okay, so you know how much it costs. So, you know, this is where the issue is that when you talk about affordable, what is affordable? And, you know, we've got to be really careful that we can look at building houses which actually are affordable.
Isn't it frustrating how we have to discuss these things when it should be a no-brainer that each human being who works should have a roof? Am I being too...
Well, it used to be that way in a manner of speaking. Like my parents' age, you know, like people in their 70s and 80s and stuff like that, they had no problem buying a house as long as they were restrained enough to not spend all their money on something else. My dad had a normal job and he managed to buy a house. I mean, he had to help with the redundancy. A redundancy payment to buy the section to begin with, but he went to a town where no one wanted to live, you know, turns out it's now a town where everyone wants to live. But I think it was that way because by the time they were finished, not to talk about my parents' finances too much, but by the time they were finished, his mortgage might have been maybe 2 years' wages. To own a waterfront house that you could put a family in.
Yeah, how times have changed.
If I could 2 years, did I say 2 months or 2 years?
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years of my wages now couldn't buy anything, buy a fast car.
By a fast car.
Yeah,
so times have changed.
We all know there's no easy solution here. We all know everything is changing rapidly and all that sort of stuff. But that doesn't mean we have to give up. We've got to keep plugging away and finding what the solutions are. And, we just have to keep doing that and being proactive. And the other thing, too, is that we've got to make sure that people in our community feel good about the place, that this is a cool place to live. And that's why I think that it's important that we sort of inject, that sort of community feeling. And then through, hopefully, a proactive council, and we can sort of deal to some of the issues, particularly around housing, roading. We haven't got the best roads in the country, have we? Let's not get on about one-lane bridges and that type of stuff.
Oh, that was one-lane bridges.
But these are all things that we definitely now, we can't wait any longer. We've got to find new ways of doing stuff.
Is it something that it would come to your power, the one-way bridges and...
We've got to fix it. I talk to people that run trucks up and down this coast, and the cost to them when during the peak times when trucks are caught up in traffic for an hour and a half. What about emergencies? We've got one-lane bridges on both sides of the peninsula. So if we lose one of them, or we lose on either side, there's a fair chance that Mercury Bay can be cut off. Now, the thing is, this is 2022, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why isn't it that we haven't? But I'll qualify this too. Now, I said before, we live in one of the nicest parts of the country. You drive across the Kopu Bridge, okay? Nice bridge, some nice Maori statues sitting there. You come along to a roundabout, Leo. That little roundabout, which is run by NZTA, which is New Zealand Transport Agency, is covered with weeds and rubbish and all sorts of nonsense. Now, that to me is a signal as how much do they really care about us. Our gateway to our lovely part of the world is covered in weeds and rubbish. And I'm going to make a pledge that if I'm successful in becoming the mayor, on the day after the election, I'm going to get a bunch of mates of mine and we're going to go down there with our weed eaters and bloody get rid of all those weeds and plant some decent plants, And this, I just feel that why can these people keep treating us like this? Why do they just let us go with these one-lane bridges? Why do they spend $1 million building a walking bridge at just north of Tairua, which goes nowhere? What's all that about?
Was that council or is that
NZTA?
It was NZTA.
I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
You mentioned Sandra's speech 6 years ago, talking about the housing crisis and everything. What has been good in the 6 years, and what do you think it was not enough? How would you make an overview of these last 6 years?
You can skip the good part if you want.
Oh, the silence was a good answer, man. Must say. Come on, gotta do it, man. Gotta do it. Don't leave us to do it.
As I've said all along through my campaign, that I'm not going to be critical of people that have gone ahead of us. Okay? They've done their best with the resources that they've got. But what I have seen is the need for us to, as I said, go back and listen to our residents and our ratepayers. And, I think that they've done a really good job in terms of investment on water, which is good, throughout the whole of the region. They have made reasonable investment on that.
We'll probably get a real good payout for that, from the three waters.
Well, they've already spent part of it. Can we talk about something else?
Sure, we can. Yeah.
Oh, I have one quick question about Three Waters though. It's not a bad. It's not a. I won't go too deep. Is that so? That's a surefire thing that's happening.
Well, unless the national government get in, and they have said that they would repeal the legislation. Otherwise, it appears as though it's a done thing.
Okay, that's cool.
When you run for mayor, do you have to have any alliance, or you have to be part of a party? Is that, or you go as an independent?
You can. I don't think anybody in Thames-Coromandel is aligned to a party. All of them are independents. Yep.
Do you, in your view, do you think it makes it easier to get elected when you tell people the party you connect more with, or you think it's more of a personal?
No, I think it's a personal thing, Leo. You know, the thing is that I'm not politically motivated. I'm standing because I have a vision that this place is the best part of New Zealand to live in, and I want to keep it that way. So, yeah, I don't think it sort of matters up here too much. You know, obviously there's all walks of life up here, and that's one of the really cool things about our community. It's very diverse. You know, you've got left-wing people who are very environmentally conscious and all that sort of stuff, and then you've got right across the spectrum, really, which is really cool. And I think that from a mayor's point of view, and, you know, a community leader, it's sort of my job with the councillors to make sure that we bring all those people together so we can actually maximise the skills that they've all got. You know, it's not about just the right-wing people doing this and the left-wing people doing that. You know, I think it's great to bring them together and work together.
We had I don't know why we have to keep bringing up Scott Simpson, but he's the only other politician that I've interviewed personally. He's part of the Blue Greens, you know, and I found his for a national MP and someone who's obviously right wing. I thought he had some really good ideas about the environment and that sort of carry on. And then we had the previous mayor on, who I would say a climate denier, I suppose would probably be the word. How do you sit with the climate in the way of, like, is that on your mind when you come into council? Things like because we have quite a lot of like flooding and the slips and whatnot that go on. I'm not sure who's in control of that, whether that goes under the NZTA or whatever, if it's on one of the, you know, on the state highways or what. But is that something that sits on your mind, the environment and especially in the Coromandel, since we seem to be very vulnerable here to weather events, especially?
Let's take them in two parts, environment and climate change. The environment is one of the most critical parts to us as a community. You know, I think most of us are here because we love the forest, we love the bush, we love the beaches, fishing, all that sort of stuff. And I think what really impresses me, and it's like the rahui that's been put on scallops up around northern Mercury Bay, you know, to actually protect our environment and keep that sort of stuff, that's great to see, all right? I can tell you straight off that I'm opposed to mining in the Coromandel Peninsula. Why do we want to have mining here when we want to actually encourage people to come and enjoy our environment? The other issue with climate change, how long have we got? Now, climate change is here. It's a happening thing. And there's varying schools of thought, you know, and some people will say it's cyclic, and, you know, I don't doubt that. What our council has done, and you asked me before what they've done really well, shoreline management plan, which I think they've done an excellent job in terms of going around and consulting to see. Now that plan has been done, and that plan is about sort of the potential impacts of climate change on our coast, and, you know, when we're looking at sort of where a road's going to go past and all that sort of stuff. What I'm going to recommend is that we actually expand that to where it takes into what are the responses going to be by our council as a result of climate change if there was a flood. Okay, so what have we got in place to make sure that every one of our residents is safe? Now, we've just seen what happened in Nelson. You know, fortunately nobody was killed or died or whatever. But we need to do the same thing here. So with climate change, we've got shoreline management, then we actually have a plan in place to make sure that our residents are safe. And the next part is that housing and infrastructure and that sort of thing is safe. Now, you know, it's a toughie. There's no doubt about it. I think that, you know, we all have to accept some sort of responsibility for climate change. And, you know, I don't want to go through and try and list a whole lot of things we should be doing, but we need to be mindful of it, and we need to start working to make sure that we are all playing our part in terms of, you know, trying to reduce the greenhouse gases and everything else that's going on. So it's a big bit, you know, I think that with that shoreline management plan, I think it gives us a really good chance to sort of like look at this issue slightly wider. We will have to accept that houses are going to get hit if it carries on the way it is, because we simply cannot afford to go away and build protective areas to, you know, protect houses all around the Coromandel Peninsula. How many kilometres of coastline have we got? 400 kilometres or something like that?
That was that much.
Yeah, it's massive, I think. So, you know, it's definitely real. There's no doubt about that. We're seeing that all the time. TV1 News love showing you a flood every night.
They do, yeah.
Did you hear about that controversy with the fishing competition in town? That there was
I did.
There was something involved with the school.
Yep.
What did you think about that?
I don't really have an opinion on it, Leo.
Nah.
It was a competition that was run by the fishing club. They were obviously all in, what's the term I'm looking for, in good faith, that they were working with the school, and I think that there was a satisfactory outcome.
Do you go fishing?
I do, actually. I fish off the beach at Onimana.
Do you do sports fishing?
No. Do I catch any fish?
You-
No, that's another question.
That's a good question. If you catch any,
No, I fish off the beach. I quite like. A mate of mine's got a Kentucky that he puts out. We go down and I have a fish with my rod while Bruce's Kentucky is out, and we have a couple of beers. And
you eat what you catch.
most definitely, yep, dead right.
Good man.
And if I don't eat it, the neighbours do.
Someone does.
Yeah.
What happened with that anyway? Did that end up? Have they run the competition?
I think the competition went ahead as per
I was just
usual.
curious if it come to
I don't think there was a
finale yet.
there was a big. Yeah, I think that the school thing was a very tiny thing. If you think about the size of that competition and the money involved there, it became famous because of the school. But I think like it's way bigger
Thanks.
than that. Yeah. John, now a little bit about you, man. So how was the time as a you sent me a cool text the other day. You said, well, once a journalist, I think you're always a journalist, right?
Yeah.
How was that? How did that come up? Was that the first thing that you engaged, like as a student? Did you decide to be a journalist, or you did things before? And how was that the time? How did that make the person who you are now?
I went surfing, and my father phoned me up one day and said, journalism school starts on Monday, be there. Okay? So I actually was on the inaugural ATI, Auckland Tech Institute, and I think they call it the Auckland University of Technology now, AUT. And I did the very first journalism course there, which was 50 years ago this year. And then the first job I had was actually on the Thames Star in Thames. So I worked over in Thames for about 3.5, 4 years, I think it was. And then 4 of us went overseas playing rugby, went to Canada. So there were guys that I used to play rugby with Thames Valley for. and then came back to New Zealand after 3 years, I think. And, so carried on through journalism. I worked and came back to Thames as the editor of the Thames Star, and then the Thames Star and the Hauraki Herald merged. So after that, I took off to Australia and worked over there for News Limited.
Okay, how am I going to put this? Currently, journalism and media in general, there's a lot of mistrust. Is that the word? Like a lot of people give a lot of shit, maybe because we have social media, and then there's a different way to access information. A lot of people coming up with a lot of facts that you don't know if it's a fact or not, and then people end up targeting the media. It's always like, oh, media, like never. Did that ever get to you when you were working as a journalist? Was it something that you would be like a bit concerned about the way that you were writing things, or like the place that you were writing that was, you were always like, nah, this is what we're doing, because I don't know if it's something that it's recent because now we have so much information coming to us, or if it's something that it's been happening for years and then we just notice more now.
Yeah. Leo, I can't sort of think back. We were always pretty middle of the road when it came to reporting stories, and that was one of the basic fundamental things of being a journalist. And the other thing that was very basic was the fact that you never published a story unless you had both sides of the story. So you would never burst into the print and say, Brett's run down the street and pulled his clothes off without talking to Brett.
When?
I don't know. I'm just using you as an example.
It might be true.
But the thing is, and I can remember I had a good story in Australia, and I had to sit at the Daily Telegraph, and I had to sit on it for about 10 days because the editor of the paper would not run the story without getting both sides of the story. Now, I think the other thing that's happened with journalism in this country, that rather than actually being journalists, a lot of the reporters have become commentators. So, when you sort of look at TV news, rather than TV going to talk to the people that make the news, they wheel in and here's our correspondent, our business editor, and all of a sudden we listen to their commentary. And the other thing, even when you look at sort of a very good friend of mine is the managing editor of the New Zealand Herald, but I look and see more and more columns, and I read the Herald every day on their website, and it's all column after column, Jim Smith's opinion or Harry Brown or whatever. And, the days of actually reporting news seem to be diminished.
Yeah. No, I agree. When we were kids and we had like Judy Bailey and stuff on, and that shows my age, and I was like, young.
I can go back further than that, mate, so don't you worry.
But like it did seem to be like those that was the news and this is the news. And it was what it was. And now, like, I remember sitting there with my wife one time and going, what is this? I don't want to hear their opinion.
Exactly.
Like, and it's changed. Like, you're dead right. Like, I agree. It's changing to like opinion piece, even on the news itself. Like the TV news. I mean.
Well, and I actually think she's a really good journalist. But the lady that's the Pacific Islands reporter for TV1, every time you go and get her opinion on something rather than actually the people that the news story's about. And, and it does frustrate me. It makes me very angry, and I must say that I've tended to watch international news, on other networks rather than watching our local news.
Do you think they do that because people relate more to someone giving an opinion, because nowadays everyone can give an opinion on social media or whatever? Do you think it's a more of a thing like, I can relate to someone giving their opinion because I want to give my opinion as well? Do you think it gets to their emotions as well? That's why.
I reckon it's laziness, Leo. Seriously, I think it's bloody easy just to go and stand up and spout off about a particular topic, whereas rather than actually going and digging out the story. How often do you actually see a journalist in New Zealand break a big story? Oh, dead silence again. Yeah. We're not seeing it, it really concerns me about the level of journalists. But, and I'm going to give the guy a plug now. What's really good here in our community is John Grant and CFM have now got a local news service. And, and then I've spoken to John a lot about that. And that's fantastic, because I think that you go back to council, people working in council or the councillors need to be kept honest, and the journalists always used to do that. We used to get heaps and heaps of stories out of council. And, it's great now that I'm seeing John, who's actually reporting council stuff. I know the other papers sort of play with it, but, not to the extent that council should be reported.
So they're giving the two sides of the story, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but it's just nice that CFM is now providing a local news service, and I hope that they can actually grow it and expand it. You know, it's good for our community.
When you say you mentioned the international news that you usually go for, what are the channels that you usually watch or you would recommend people to have a look?
Fox News. No, I'm only joking. It is a riot to watch, though, sometimes literally, but it is a good laugh.
I've got a mate in Onimana that's all he watches, okay? And much to the angst of his wife.
Mm-hmm.
No, I've got, I always look at the Daily Telegraph in Sydney because it's a paper I used to work for, the Australian in Sydney. I like the New York Post, you know, so those are the main ones. And, you know, Al Jazeera, I think, is doing a really good job in terms of TV news, you know, so, yeah, but I flick around. If there's a big event happening in the States, you know, you go to CFN. What did I say? CNN. Yeah. And then if it's in the UK, you go to BBC. It's just,
yeah.
Yep.
Have you watched Vice? Do you know Vice?
Vice. No. Have I watched Vice? I don't think so.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
It's a bit younger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's all right.
yeah, a different perspective.
How much younger?
A bit older than me, a bit younger than you, I would say.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
But it's a bit more alternative and it's on HBO.
Yeah.
So it's it's just a different way of reporting things. They actually go. A lot of them put themselves in big risks to get information. So I appreciate that. You know, I think that it's probably one of the more decent professions that people don't value.
Yeah.
You know, because the real journalists, they have no fear. You know, like they put themselves in the middle of the hurricane.
They're investigative reporters, though.
Yeah, Vice and investigative.
If they're going into the middle of hurricanes, they're lunatics.
Yeah, they might go into the middle of the beehive. Who knows? They're lunatics as well.
But
sometimes.
That's why I like Al Jazeera, because they don't hold back. You know, they get right amongst it. It's great.
Yes. Do you listen to podcasts?
No, I don't actually. Now, I don't know why, because, you know, I've got good friends that listen to podcasts, but it's just something that I've never got into.
Too many commentators? No much.
I don't know, actually. I think I'm sort of, you know, information overload. Yeah.
Fair enough. Have you been listening to all the podcasts, Brett? You're a Lex Fridman fan?
I love Lex Fridman. He's probably my favourite person on the planet almost. Lex Fridman I listen to. Andrew Huberman. The Human Lab. I've been listening to heaps of Radio Lab. You listen to them?
Radio Lab. Yeah, I've come across.
They're investigative reporter journalists. They're real good. They spend like 3 years to make like one episode. They reckon on average it costs them $100,000 an episode to make.
Oh, wow.
By the time they do all the flying around the world and getting to the bottom of things, and it's pretty crazy. But yeah, listen to that. Audiobooks, a lot of audiobooks as well. That's a good way to read when you don't seem
I thought about you yesterday. Lex Fridman made a great comment that he said, I'm not right-wing, left-wing. I talk to people. I listen to their perspectives and I see what I agree and what I don't. So I try not to label myself.
Who was he interviewing on that?
I think it was just like a random comment. Probably people were giving him shit for interviewing someone from the right wing or the left, but he put it.
He does it all the time. He'll interview
politely.
like just both sides, you know. And as much as Michaela Peterson, Jordan Peterson's daughter, she has been doing really good lately with her podcasts. I was listening to her before just for diet type stuff, getting on this like carnivore diet. But she's been doing a really good job of interviewing two people, one after the other, from both sides of a story. And one of them was like meat versus vegan, and another one was like trans rights and things like that. And will get both sides and gives them a real decent shot at it, where like even to the point where I'm like, I'm actually siding with like the person who she didn't necessarily agree with, you know, like she gives them such a good go at it that it's like, they got some really like great points, and you know, and from both sides it's quite, she's doing quite a good job at the moment.
Do you remember covering something that was hard for you personally, like a subject or a story that you really had to put that professional thing? Well, I can see you're a very professional man, but like, was it something that was challenging that you can remember? You were like, that's a tough story to cover.
There was I don't know if you remember the Lindy Chamberlain story in Australia, where it was alleged that the dingo took her baby.
Oh, yeah.
What was it? Can you
Yes.
tell me, please?
Dingo at me, baby.
Yeah, so there was a husband and wife, and their kids were up at Ayers Rock, and the baby went missing, and they claimed the dingo had taken the baby. She was a Kiwi actually living over in Australia, and well, they're both Kiwis, and so anyway, they ended up going to court because they claimed that she took the baby. So I covered part of that case, which was pretty interesting because they actually reversed the decision. They had a second trial. So that was pretty interesting.
What was the outcome of that? I just don't know. What was the outcome of this?
The second trial she got off. Yeah, I didn't actually cover the second trial, but I covered part of the first trial.
The way I understand it, yeah, well, the way I understand it is that it was a dingo, but I could be wrong. I mean, she was proven in the court of law that she didn't do it in the second time.
The second time, yeah. So it was.
Yeah.
Who knows?
There was some of the clothes in the dingo's den,
Yeah.
but then they were like, oh, it looked like they
Remember
were
had
folded
the,
or something.
the jumpsuit thing.
Yeah.
I think reporting on the Erebus plane crash
Oh.
after that was pretty tough. I was actually working in Thames then, and there was quite a few people around the peninsula who were on the plane. So that was quite hard in terms of sort of talking to the families and that sort of thing. And particularly then going and working for Air New Zealand after that. No, I've sort of, there's been interesting stuff that I've sort of focused a lot when I was in Australia on transport and aviation, when I was reporting over there. And, I find I love flying. And I find that quite fascinating around, particularly in New Zealand. It's a great company and all that sort of stuff. Went through some really hard times, but came out the other side, which is, a great story.
Yeah.
What did you do for them?
I was started off in Australia as their public affairs manager for Australia, and then was transferred back to New Zealand as head of media communications, and then I took over all their advertising and promotional activities and marketing.
Were you ever on an ad?
No.
Your voice?
No, I wasn't actually. No, I wasn't on any New Zealand.
So you might have
ads.
just written yourself into one or something,
No.
John, what have we got there, man? You brought some notes to us. What are the things that you would like to give to us, man? Because you're going for something important for our community. So I think it's.
Yeah, look, it's just, if there's a sum up, Leo, it's about people, and I can't stress enough that that's the thing that's motivating me. And, and I'm actually, the more I've got into this, the more that I'm really starting to enjoy it. And I think that we have the opportunity to do something pretty special here. I think that people have to realise, as we said pretty much right from the outset, that it is a tough gig, all right? And there's lots of money at stake, and there's lots of stuff at stake in terms of, our region going forward. So, I'm really urging people to get out and vote. Don't just treat it as, oh, yeah, I won't worry about that. Get out and have your say, all right? We've got 7 candidates for the mayoralty, so that's a bit of a lottery, and you could end up with a winner actually having less votes than all the other 7, so then you actually end up with a minority mayor, which is, it's not a good look. I am surprised with the number of people that have put their hands up. Len Salt and I have been out there pretty early on, and and obviously I think we both did it because we knew the commitment that it takes and also sort of what the job entails. As I said, I'm putting myself because I actually have the commercial background to actually do the job. And so it's great. Looking forward to it.
What's your connection with the business association?
The one in Thames?
Yes.
Yes, I'm a member of the business association over there. So I played Santa Claus at Christmas time.
Cool, important job.
Yeah, of course it was. I made a few kids cry and, a few of them laugh. But, and business associations go back to our economic development. I would actually like to see one business association covering the whole of the Coromandel Peninsula because they're another group that, should have a lot of influence in terms of the direction that we travel down.
Do you have any connection to the one here, to the business?
No, I don't actually. I know that Linda Grant is quite heavily involved with that, and obviously, with John and Linda. So I don't have a connection myself.
Have you ever been to any of those meetings or anything related to
Price, no.
Nah.
No, I thought about it. I thought when I owned, well, I shouldn't say I owned a business. When I was a sole trader at one point, I talked to a couple of locals about getting involved, and being a tradesman in a small town sort of wasn't probably something that I probably could provide any weight to their conversations, or even probably get anything out of it either, was the way I was talked to about it anyway. So I was just like, whatever. But I definitely thought about the community board back home. I was like pretty keen to join actually but we ended up moving here, just because I've raised them up almost my whole life, so I wanted to have a bit of an input, knew a lot of people, and
but see, Brett, like
on.
your business organisation, one of the key things there is networking. So obviously your business is going well, so you don't need that. But if you're sort of setting up a new building or something, a new business, networking is critical, and that's where these organisations can really help people.
True.
Do you feel like there was a big, the businesses took a big blow, the post-pandemic, after all the lockdowns? Was it something that came about in the meetings and everything?
Yeah, huge. It did really whack commercial New Zealand around, like running Goldfields Shopping Centre, and I knew sort of how it impacted, particularly through the lockdowns, on, our businesses. They were lucky that the government made provision for wages and that sort of stuff, and we actually provided credits to some of our businesses, but retail has bounced back pretty well after that, so which is quite encouraging.
It was hard to balance that, because the government was doing the best to look after the people compared to a lot of other countries who didn't bother much. I can speak for Brazil, obviously. They didn't give a fuck about the people. And then we had New Zealand actually carrying, going for lockdown, but obviously for the economy was a bit of a complicated one.
I just hope it's behind us.
How tricky was that?
I really do. I just hope that it is behind us. And, I really struggle, and I do it, but I struggle wearing a mask and all that sort of stuff. And, it's great to see people without masks on, because you can actually see the character in their face, where it was all been wearing these masks. And I feel really sorry for people like my daughter, who's 25, who her life has just been smashed over, jobs and all that sort of stuff. Kids that have been going through school and lockdown and that sort of stuff, they've missed critical times in their lives. So, it's good. Hopefully we're on the back end of it now, and we'll see where we go from there.
Why did you put your hand up for to become the manager of the shopping center? I don't know if this is something that actually it's relevant, but people like to be nostalgic, Oh, it used to be better, but this is something that I heard before.
Used to be better.
Yeah, it's always like that. It used to be better, and I actually heard it before. Oh, the shopping mall used to be better, and now what's happening? So like, was it something that affected your decision to become a manager there?
Yeah, I wanted to go. I sort of went into retirement, which wasn't good. I don't like being retired. And the opportunity came over there to work as a consultant to Goldfields. I felt really sorry that Thames had a shopping centre like that. Like, we had potholes in that car park that you could almost lose semi-trailers in, And it's taken, because of COVID, it's taken longer than I thought to sort of turn around. But sort of the back end of the shopping centre now, we've got 3 new tenants, or tenants that have moved into bigger shops. Specsavers is coming now. So you go around that side, it looks fantastic. It looks like a proper shopping mall. And for all of those people that are listening about the slippery tiles, which seems to fill most Facebook sites in Thames, that, these are the things. That stuff was just run down. And the owner, has invested a lot of money just recently to sort of fix it up and turn it around. So we've still got a way to go. As I said, it's hard to get national retailers to come into a place like Thames. If you're not on State Highway 1 or State Highway 22, they're reluctant to move. So, we've got about 3 shops, I think, now that I need to fill. And we would love someone that might want to run a cafe. And once we do those, we'll sort of be heading down the right track.
Was it what you were expecting when you became the manager there, or it was harder than you thought?
No, I knew exactly. I checked it out before I went in there. Spent a few days over there, Leo, so I knew what it was going to be like.
Hey, it's been better, but it's also been worse too, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
You tell me, Brett.
Oh no, I've been there in the past where I was like, I don't know if I want to come here again, but I go to Goldfields when I go to Thames.
Yeah, but Brett, the thing was that it had no character. You walk into that food courty area and it was just no character whatsoever. And now we've got some plants in there and the music's changed and we have stuff, we run things over the school holidays and, people say to me, oh man alive, this has changed, which is great.
Well, the car park's always pretty full anyway.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's about 1.2, 1.3 million people a year go through Goldfields.
Really?
Yeah, staggering,
Wow. What do you think about a bowling alley?
I love Tempin bowling.
You put one in Thames when you...
I'd rather have a movie theatre.
Oh, yeah?
Well, we don't have a movie theatre in Thames.
So fits
Don't you?
No.
Well, I shouldn't say you don't live in Thames, but yeah.
No, there's no movie theatre in Thames.
There's this campaign to put a bowling alley in Whitianga, man. So if you do it in Thames, people in Whitianga is going to be like, oh no.
Don't travel though. Travel to Thames to go to the bowling alley. You could do a bowling alley / picture theatre, one building.
Definitely.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put the bowling alley for the Whitianga?
Where?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
There's a lot of land out there, doesn't it?
It's true. You could put it out next to like Countdown, out opposite Countdown down there somewhere. That'd be good.
That would be great. So when you say that this our area should have more like events and all that stuff, like personally, what would you like to see?
What would I like to see? I've obviously got a personal interest in rugby. And I think we've got fantastic golf facilities around the peninsula around in places like Queenstown, they run these 5-day tournaments across 5 clubs. And now that's a benefit for each golf club. You get 130 or 140 people or whatever come and play. I think this room, we're really lucky with the summer concert, and I think there should actually be more than just one summer concert. I think, we're not just in Whitianga, we should be in other places. I love what Noddy Watts has done with Beach Hop, and of course he was looking at running another event in Thames. We've got arts, we've got people that are heavily involved in arts, culture, music, our heritage. All of those things I think need to go in the mix to say, hey, what can we do in terms of running big events around these, And I think there's great opportunities when we've got so many people right on our doorstep.
What would you like to see, Brett?
I don't know. I'm drawing a blank.
More shows, more events,
Yeah, more gigs.
music.
More gigs would be good. Yeah, I mean we get some good, some alright stuff. Monkey House is doing all right, trying to bring in some good gigs. But yeah, some. I mean, it's hard to draw a band all the way up here. It takes hours to get here. For a night.
I think you can fly from Auckland.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, with barrier air. That's
and
true.
If you had a concrete airstrip or a sealed airstrip out there, you'd most probably get bigger planes and more of them.
Could you have a gig at the town hall? Do you know that? Mm-hmm. Because that's a good size venue, eh?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they have had gigs there, haven't they?
Yeah.
Have you flown with barrier air?
No.
Not
I
yet?
haven't. No.
Cheap.
It's very good. Great
My mother-in-law's
service.
flying to Australia to visit her sisters, and she's going to just jump on the barrier air straight through to the airport. It arrives, I think, about 3 hours or so, 4 hours, something like that, before her flight. But she's got to be there like 2 hours before anyway.
That's right.
So she's like, by the time I make it from the domestic and jump onto the thing and go across, get in, sign in, and go through, do some duty free and whatever, it'll be fine. Yeah.
One of the things we haven't talked about, Leo, is things like new sort of facilities and stuff. Like I've been talking to a couple of people in Whangamata, which is sort of known as, next to Raglan, of course, is one of the great surf venues in New Zealand. And, the opportunity to build the New Zealand Surf Museum or something like that around in a place like Whangamata, and looking at Mercury Bay to say what sort of other facilities could you actually utilise this local area to have something like that.
A game fishing museum.
Well, you know.
Sorry,
Well,
just poking at him.
You do laugh. Who's the game fisherman? Him?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't like game fishing.
Oh, he doesn't like game fishing. Okay.
I just don't see the point. It's not that I don't like it.
John, just want to bring another topic back. You were talking about the drugs and what the drugs is doing, especially for our community here. What would be your approach for it? What do you think that needs to be done to reduce that around here?
Well, it goes right back to what we talked about earlier about the number of police and law enforcement people that we have up here. And, you know, the only way that you're going to curb that or stop it is to have more crime, more people actually enforcing laws and catching the crims. And, you know, I get the police magazine each month, and there's a graph in it, and I think there was a target of 1,800 police. And I think the graph has never gone past 1,200. You know, but we definitely need more police. You know, the guys that are here just can't do it. When you look at sort of the team policing arrangement across the whole of the Coromandel Peninsula, you know, they can't be everywhere.
What can we do? What can we do to attract more people to police? Do you reckon? Do we need to pay more? Like, what's going to draw the crowd? I know this isn't a mayoral question,
No, I think the problem is it's just the numbers. I think they're actually attracting enough people in to be police, but they're losing so many at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's sort of...
So maybe the support of them...
They're sort of training, and I think, look, it's a bloody hell of a job, and policemen get burnt out. You know, I've got some friends who are long-term policemen, and it's a tough gig, and, you know, they get burnt out. So it's like doctors, you know, if you want to get onto that. We know there's a shortage of doctors. Why aren't we training more doctors? You know, because they put these limits on the training institutions where the doctors are trained. And, you know, policing's the same. They can only accommodate currently so many people at any one time going through police college. So, you know, we've got to start to look at sort of new ways of doing this.
Because I do wonder, like, you know, we have these in New Zealand especially, I'm sure it's the same in every country, but we see here we've got these obvious shortages, you know, like nursing, doctors, police, you know, it's like... I just wonder what you can do to fix it, because we just don't seem to be doing anything.
Well, first probably you should give uni.
No one asked you.
Uni for free, you know, because you're trying to export people from overseas, but you're not qualifying your own people, you know. Like on the matter of the drugs, just should not go away. And I think it's the same matter of doctors and or police. You go to big cities, there is enough policemen there, but the drugs is still the same in the case, you know, like, because I feel that drugs is in a way, let's say like that. Everybody say that drugs is bad, right? Drugs is bad for you, but it is bad for you, but when you use the drug, it's not bad for the people who is using it, right? Otherwise, they not gonna use it again. It's just like, it is an addiction to your brain that takes it. But my point is, why that people got to the point to use the drug, you know? Because sometimes the person is just unhappy, or the person is having other problems, and then they are looking for a valve to skip, you know, like that life, you know, like, and then you treat that kind of people as criminals in the same way that the people who is selling that things for them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think that is the big picture of it. Is like, maybe we should have more policemen here and police on the thing, but also probably we should have more doctors and changing the approach of not just being criminal, but also being a case of a health system more than just a criminal case. I don't know.
It's not just about police, as you said, Taylor. It's about sort of the whole structure.
Because I think sometimes if someone would be having eyes on them when they're using it, they would be uncomfortable. And they would understand that they actually are depending of that more than actually enjoying it. You know what I mean? But sometimes it's just because they have this thing of against the government, and I'm doing that because the government doesn't want it.
It's illegal.
So, you know, like, And I don't know if putting more people there to put these people in jail, because you put one in jail, another 3 born. You know, like it's just
yeah. Well, I noticed somewhere just recently that they were talking about decriminalising some drug offences, and some of that was meth. You know, just to actually keep the people away from going through the criminal system and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Is it New Zealand? Is it something here?
No, I read somewhere, I just forget where it was, but they
Right.
were talking about sort of somebody came up.
Some of those Scandinavian countries have decriminalised all drugs, you know.
Yeah.
I think...
Switzerland, Portugal.
So, what do you reckon? Do you reckon, or Taylor, or any of you, do we need to get cracked down on the people selling it? Like, because I've wondered this almost my whole life.
Well,
as an adult, like, why don't they crack down on the places that sell it?
Do you want to listen to John's opinions first before
Yeah,
you say yours,
definitely.
Taylor?
Because I don't think that, like, for example,
so we-
I know of a place that sells meth, weed, whatever, in Fitty, and I've seen it there now for probably 4 years, the exact same spot. And the police are aware, like, because I've seen the police go in and out of the place. But it's not like they don't, like, bust the house and then bust up the ring. It's just like every now and then you see a cop show up there and they walk in and then they walk back out 10 minutes later and it carries on. And I've often wondered that about, like, I mean, I don't smoke weed but I've got nothing against people who smoke weed or even want to sell it, whatever. It's pretty low level. But, like, the tinny houses will sit there for 2, 3, 4 years in the same spot too, you know.
Brett, I don't want to sort of get in because I don't know the facts or anything like that, but we've got to stop the supply of meth and those sorts of drugs that are coming in. They're just absolutely destroying our communities. And, you know, as I said to you earlier, I think that my son is a policeman and, you know, the stories that he tells me, and the other thing is that I mentioned earlier about last Sunday where there was 5 family harm cases in Thames, serious priority 1 family harm cases. Now, the thing is, I reckon there'll be a fair bet that most of those were sort of on the back of meth and whatever. And it is starting to screw over our community. And I see people walking around our shopping centre and wondering, what are they doing? What are they on? You know, and you can't go near them because they're just... I had 2 on Tuesday, absolutely out of control.
See, it's like it's hardly their fault though, in a lot of ways. That way, like, that's what I'm saying. Is the solution more to take it off the street as opposed to taking them off the street? You know, because they're just trying to numb a pain at the end.
Yeah,
of the day.
and I think if you take the drugs out of the street, if you manage that, what I think would be very hard, these people would be getting crazy, be looking for it, you know, like, so then probably the crime would get even bigger.
They'd
you know?
go away
It's got to be a
eventually, wouldn't it?
2-tier approach, Taylor.
Yeah.
If you're going to take the drugs away, it's like any drug addict. You know, what do? They actually put them on a methadone treatment or something like that to actually get them off it. So, yeah, if you do one, you've actually got to do the other as well.
Yeah, that's my concern. It's not even like with the people who is selling it, because I really don't agree with that, but it's with the people who is depending of it, you know, like, because they are sick, you know, like, more than anything else. And then they receive the same approach that the people who is selling, you know what I mean? Yeah.
And it seems to be a social issue as well. Probably those families are low income families as well. Like
I don't think it's just
Not
low-income
really?
families.
No?
No.
I'm aware of people who make a lot of money.
Oh yeah. But I mean, when it comes to, like, the ones that get targeted, you know, because you would have the condition to have a better treatment if you have conditions to pay for it, and if you don't have, if you are on the other side of the social economics, that's when you would probably go for the crimes or for the bad behavior, whatever. I don't know. I just want to I don't want to generalize and not having facts, but it's just from what I see from my country, you know, like, a lot of rich people obviously do drugs, but they handle it better because they have better conditions to support their addiction when you don't.
Anyway, what would you do if you were mayor?
Do I have the power to legalize everything?
No.
Oh, so I don't know.
No, I'm not talking about drugs anymore.
Oh, we're not talking about drugs anymore.
I think you would, on the wrap up.
I really like what John said about like listening to the people, you know, and that's why being together, being with the community boards and being with the people who are living here out there, you know, like the everyday people, you know, like the ones who are watching and seeing the problems. I think being a good listener is a great point. And for me, it's all about the events and the sports, you know, like how are we going to get more music involved? How are we going to get more kids to do the skate park thing, you know, like the rugby, you know, like what are we going to organize for them that they keep themselves busy? Because again, I work at the school and I know that a lot of kids, they have a full schedule. They go to school and then they do like jiu-jitsu, rugby. Why? Because they can pay for that. You know, what about the ones who cannot pay for those things, you know? And then we call them little shits or troubled kids. Nah, they're not troubled kids, man. They're poor. You know, like if they had the opportunity to do 6 activities after school, they would sleep like babies, you know, like they would have the best sleep, but some of them cannot even sleep properly.
Yeah,
you
let's
know?
just go for a run.
There's too much.
What?
Anyway, thank you. You said something about wrapping up, so do you want to bring something else before we...
Oh,
finish?
no. I just got to drive all the way back to Whangamata, that's all. Or
John,
Wanimana.
give us some final considerations, man. We're enjoying this chat. This has been cool.
Well,
man.
it's been very enjoyable. And, you know, as I said, I just have to reiterate that I want this place to be really cool, okay? And I just think that we've got to be innovative, we've got to be different, we've got to make sure that all of our residents and our ratepayers and all our stakeholders are on board at the same time. So, you know, empowering people and being open and honest, what more can we ask for?
That's great.
That's great. Thank you
Cool.
so much.
Thank you very
Taylor,
much,
are you
guys.
bringing something to the table before we finish?
No, just saying thank you for you, John, and for coming, and yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Taylor.
And good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we will be back on Friday with Mr. Jason Miat. He's a radio broadcaster. He's actually a radio broadcaster for CFM.
Oh, yeah.
Good
Cheers.
man. Was living in Australia for a long time. He loves the Coromandel. We have a lot of cool things to talk about. We did the gig guide for a long time together. Lovely man. We're going to have a great chat. And I'll see you at 7 p.m. on Friday. Peace.